My father was a drinker and a fiend, and one night he goes off crazier than usual. Mommy gets the kitchen knife to defend herself. He doesn't like that. Not one bit. So, me watching, he takes the knife to her, laughing while he does it. Turns to me and he says, "Why so serious?" Comes at me with the knife. "Why so serious?" He sticks the blade in my mouth. "Let's put a smile on that face." And... oh, why so serious? Or maybe Heath Ledger did it better than I did. But either way, this is one of my absolute favorite movie scenes. The intensity that Heath puts into his portrayal of the Joker, the raw fierceness and his sense of villainy, and his overall talent in his display of the Joker's insanity, it is such a great scene. The Dark Knight trilogy in its entirety is my absolute favorite and what I consider to be the best narrative of the Caped Crusader yet. And it was because of Heath Ledger's absolutely brilliant portrayal of the Joker that I believe this very thing to be true. The Joker himself, actually. There's just something about him that just hypnotizes the mind. He's maniacal. He's crazy. He's also extremely clever, and he's extremely crafty in his grandiose spectacle of anarchy and chaos in the face of law and order. I don't know. Maybe I'm just spouting nonsense that I know nothing about. What I do know is that Batman is a complete blast, no matter which way you watch him work. And so, as a fan of superheroes and Batman specifically, I, Samantha Rose, will be your nightly host for a look into the Dark Knight's past and his overall significance in history. Not just in comics, but as an overall icon for a lot of people. And so, as the Joker so seductively said, here we go. Batman, as we all know, is a fictional superhero character from the popular comic strip series that was created for DC Comics by writers Bob Kane and Bill Finger. He first debuted in May of 1939 in Detective Comics number 27, and Batman has since appeared in graphic novels, on television in a campy, lame-as-all-hell live-action series, and he became a critically acclaimed animated series. He's crept from the shadows of video games, and he stands quite gloriously in brooding, atmospheric films. The origin of the Batman character was not actually revealed to readers until his 7th comic book appearance, and it is now a hugely known tale in every corner of the world. But, in the off chance you're completely unfamiliar, as the prosperous physician Thomas Wayne, his lovely, lovely wife Martha, and their young, innocent son Bruce exited a Gotham City movie house after a late-night showing of The Mask of Zorro. They were robbed by a thief brandishing a pistol. Dr. Wayne attempted to protect his wife, but the panicked gunmen murdered the adult Waynes as their horrified young son watched, helpless. The grief-stricken boy then dedicated his entire life to avenging the cold-blooded murder of his dear parents by spending the rest of my life warring on all criminals. After years and years of rigorous training, perfecting both his body and mind, Bruce, having now inherited his wealthy father's fortune, mulled over a fancy crime-fighting disguise that would terrorize lawbreakers everywhere. A bat flapping through an open window was deemed as some kind of an omen, and the original tale's end caption heralded as such. And thus is born this weird avenger of the dark, this avenger of evil, the Batman. Batman was an instant success, becoming one of pop culture's most sensational figures. During his earliest adventures, he was alternately called Batman at some point until the hyphen was dropped completely for more solid consistency. Batman was a brutal crusader. He tossed a thug off a rooftop and executed a vampire by shooting him with a silver bullet. As Batman's acclaim swelled, the character's publisher recoiled, becoming quite fearful that the sinister, darker elements in the comic book would be emulated by its young audience. So, DC eliminated Batman's use of firearms and extreme force, and so, never again would Batman take another life. Even though, controversially, he slams dudes' heads into walls and beats the shit out of everybody. I don't know how they don't die, but anyway. Just under a year following his outrageous debut, DC softened him even more by introducing a young sidekick named Dick Grayson, who was a circus aerialist and who witnessed the mob-ordered murder of his parents and became the ward of a sympathetic Bruce, who trained the young eager lad like hell to eventually become Robin, the boy wonder. Quite exuberant and wisecracking, Robin had a profound influence on the brooding Batman. The former weird Avenger stepped rather elegantly into the role of a father figure. The overall success of Batman's appearances in Detective Comics led to an eponymous spin-off title that debuted in the spring of 1940. Ghost artists such as Jerry Robinson and Sheldon Moldoff illustrated the additional material, but due to the terms of his contract with DC, Kane would receive the credit for such work. Finger, who was responsible for some of the most recognizable elements of the entire Batman mythos, would not get any sort of acknowledgement at all as a co-creator of the character for over 75 years. Batman #1 introduced two villains who would go on to become integral components of the character's history: the sneering clown prince of crime, the Joker, and the rather sultry princess of plunder, the Catwoman, although back then she was just simply called the Cat during her initial appearance here. Batman and Robin were soon challenged by a widely spanning contingent of odd and rather extravagant antagonists. The Scarecrow, Penguin, and the Riddler were just a few of the famous rogues that repeatedly and quite foolishly took on what would become known as the dynamic duo. Batman and Robin's carefully synchronized acrobatics and deductive mastery dazzled readers, as did their wicked, crime-fighting arsenal. They each sported rather fancy utility belts that contained all the tools needed for late-night ass-kicking: batarangs, those bat-winged boomerangs, bat ropes for climbing and swinging about Gotham, and an assortment of other crafty, clever devices. For transportation, the dynamic duo used a variety of bat-themed vehicles that were all warehoused in the secret Batcave beneath the hero's grand home, Wayne Manor. By 1942, Gotham City Police Commissioner James Gordon, in a complete reversal from the earlier days of the comics, when he had ordered his officers to open fire upon Batman, was now summoning the hero into action by illuminating the nighttime skies of Gotham City with the classic bat signal. Ultimately, the dynamic duo's burgeoning popularity could not be contained in just 2 magazines alone, my friends. Oh, no. So they very quickly appeared in DC's World's Best, later called World's Finest, comics, and in 1943 swung boldly into their very own newspaper strip. In addition to their comics appearances, they segued into movie theaters in 2 distinct serials: Batman in 1943 and The New Adventures of Batman and Robin in 1949. And they also guest starred on several episodes of the radio program The Adventures of Superman during the mid-1940s. Superhero comics would come to rapidly decline in popularity following the devastating aftermath of World War II, however, and Batman was one of 3 DC characters to maintain his own series, the others being Superman and Wonder Woman. And despite Batman's resiliency and the emergence of artist Dick Sprang, whose interpretation of the Joker remains one of the classic renditions of the character's entire history, The 1950s were extremely unkind to our dearly demented Dark Knight and his young sidekick. The challenge came not from any costume thug, however. Perhaps Batman's biggest and most evil threats of all time was a psychiatrist named Frederick Wertham. In his polemic against the comic books industry, Seduction of the Innocent in 1954, Wertham here charged the comics morally corrupt their impressionable young readers, impeaching Batman and Robin in particular for supposedly flaunting a homophobic lifestyle. It seems that not even our famed Caped Crusader can escape the jaws of the social justice warriors. Anyways, Wertham wrote that they live in sumptuous quarters with beautiful flowers and large vases, and they have a butler. It is like a wish dream of two homosexuals living together. DC Comics responded to this by building a Batman family around the Caped Crusader, introducing Batwoman, Ace the Bat Hound, Batgirl, and even the magical imp like Batmite. Batman's ghoulish adversaries were either neutered completely or outright discarded from the series. And for years, DC produced a kinder, gentler Batman, and readers responded to this by sending Batman and Detective Comics to the brink of cancellation. On second thought, you guys, maybe this wasn't all that golden of an age for our favorite superhero. Editor Julius Schwartz, who had resuscitated other beloved DC superheroes, was tasked with revitalizing the ailing franchise in 1964. He commissioned artist Carmine Infantino, whose distinctive work on The Flash had helped to usher in the Silver Age of comic books, to update the appearance of the hero. Infantino's new look added a classy yellow oval to Batman's chest insignia, and his sharp, stylish penciling marked a massive break with the past that Infantino was not at all forced to share credit with Kane over. With the exception of Robin, Schwartz and writer John Broome evicted the codependent Batman family. Detective mysteries became the norm, and Batman's rogues gallery reappeared with a nasty vengeance. And on January 12, 1966, ABC premiered a live-action Batman television series that starred the immortal talents of Adam West and Burt Ward. Batman bubbled with flashy costumes and epic set pieces during a time when color television was relatively quite new, mind you. Pop art sound effect graphics, and a rotating roster of scenery-chewing villains. Cesar Romero as the Joker, Burgess Meredith as the Penguin, Frank Gorshin as the Riddler, Vincent Price as Egghead, Milton Berle as Louis the Lilac, Joan Collins as the Siren, and Eartha Kitt as Catwoman, which this is a role that she shared with Julie Newmar. And these were among just a few of the celebrities that all made wild, zany appearances as Batman's foes. The show was an immediate hit, ultimately spawning a rather unprecedented wave of Bat merchandise. The Batman newspaper strip resumed at once, and a theatrical movie was turned out during the summer of 1966. Later on in the series, Yvonne Craig joined the cast as Batgirl. The entire superhero genre benefited quite nicely from this crazy show's success, but declining ratings over time led, ultimately, to its cancellation after just 3 seasons. And now we get into the modern era of Batman's career. An increased comic book sales due to the show's success rapidly deflated once it went off the air. But this slump was eventually overcome with various efforts of writers such as Denny O'Neil, Steve Englehart, and Len Wein, as well as dynamic artists Neil Adams, Dick Giordano, and Marshall Rogers. Gone were the campy trappings of comics' Silver Age and the television show, as these comics creators produced gothic, atmospheric masterpieces that totally rehabilitated the character. During the 1980s, Batman explored even grimmer themes, which is a trend that reached fever pitch with Batman The Dark Knight Returns in 1986. This was a 4-issue miniseries by writer and artist Frank Miller that has since come to be highly regarded as one of the first official American graphic novels. Set in the near future, The Dark Knight portrayed an aging Bruce Wayne crawling out of retirement to restore order to a completely chaotic Gotham City. Miller's gritty take on Batman established a template for other writers and artists to follow suit. And then a weird and rather eccentric man named Tim Burton came along and brought Batman to the silver screen in 1989 with Michael Keaton, a quirky actor, slight of build, and best known at the time for comedy roles, chosen to play the titular character. Although the casting decision came as a massive surprise to several, the film itself was an instant massive success, spawning a wave of Bat merchandise of its own, the likes of which had not been seen since 1966. And in 1992, Burton and Keaton were both back in theaters with Batman Returns and the noirish Batman the Animated Series from 1992 to 1995 that debuted on television that fall. While subsequent films in the Batman franchise suffered declining quality and a vastly rotating cast of lead actors, Batman the Animated Series set a brand new standard for storytelling in the Batman universe. The series, which was ultimately marked by the mature tone of its plotlines, its obtusely distinct color palette and Art Deco visuals, and the outstanding caliber of its voice actors, completely reimagined villains such as Mr. Freeze and the Riddler, and it introduced a fan-favorite character, Harley Quinn, as the Joker's sidekick. The show earned 4 Emmy Awards, and it exerted a profound influence on later depictions of Gotham City and its inhabitants. During this period, writer Jeff Loeb and artist Tim Sale collaborated on a number of popular comic sagas, all set during Batman's earlier career, including Batman The Long Halloween from 1996 to 97, and Frank Miller also wrote and drew The Dark Knight Strikes Again in 2001, which was a sequel to his original Batman The Dark Knight Returns. Starting in 2006, Grant Morrison and Paul Dini, who is the writer responsible for several of the most memorable episodes of the animated series, totally reinvigorated the various Batman comic books with a series of high-concept storylines. One of Morrison's most enduring contributions to the Batman franchise was the creation of Damian Wayne, the son of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul. The spoiled but incredibly gifted Damian assumed the mantle of Robin and acted as an anti-heroic foil to both Batman and the previous Robins. Damian's heroic death was one of the key moments in Morrison's entire 7-year run on various Batman titles, but the character was eventually resurrected. When DC rebooted its entire comics line in 2016, Damian joined Superboy in the series Super Sons. Director Christopher Nolan successfully relaunched the Batman film franchise with Batman Begins in 2005, with Christian Bale in the lead role and drawing heavily upon Frank Miller's Batman Year One from 1987. Batman Begins retold the saga of Batman's origins, showing his training and his earlier days as a costumed crime fighter. The 2008 sequel, The Dark Knight, was an even bigger commercial and critical success. The standout performance in this film was undoubtedly the late Heath Ledger's extraordinary portrayal of the Joker, for which he actually won a posthumous Academy Award as Best Supporting Actor. Nolan concluded his trilogy of Batman movies with The Dark Knight Rises in 2012, which was alright, I guess. I mean, it was fine, and Tom Hardy was great as Bane, but nothing beats Ledger's performance in my eyes. Nothing. Absolutely fantastic he was. Following Nolan's reinvention, we got Ben Affleck donning the cowl in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice in 2016, a rather unique portrayal of DC's two most recognizable heroes. In spite of its harsh reviews from both critics and fans, or those that just didn't like Ben Affleck, period, the film ended up earning over $800 million globally, and it was noted quite highly for Gal Gadot's absolutely mesmerizing performance as Wonder Woman. I mean, she nailed this part, you guys, and she's like totally gorgeous too. Anyways, the Lego Batman movie in 2017, which was a spirited and rather hilarious romp told with computer-generated Lego bricks, was much, much more received. Still, and always the determined actor that he is, Ben Affleck reprised his role as Batman in Justice League in 2017, which was the DC Extended Universe's brave response to Marvel's hugely successful, much more engaging Avengers franchise. I mean, DC is awesome, and Batman is my favorite part of DC. However, Marvel makes better movies. They always have, and I think they always will, but maybe if Batman had done it first, I don't know. Batman is still kicking ass today, though, with Matt Reeves' dark and extremely brutal The Batman film starring this guy from Twilight. I joke. But I mean, Pattinson did so good with Batman, you guys, despite what you think of him from those sparkly moments in The Son of Forks. And I look forward to so much more from Batman. I also would love to see more Wonder Woman movies, because those are just awesome. But who knows at this point? DC films have kind of gone off the rails, haven't they? Either way, this will mark the end of our brief and fascinating look at Batman. And so, in closing, I want to say thank you for watching my video. I have been Samantha Rose, and I will see you all next time. Until then, you want to know how I got these scars?